No doubt the Cobra meetings. If this is a terrorist attack, there will be a suspect out there, there will be a police operation, they will be trying to deal with that, and that takes some attention. All attention has been focused on the election for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and suddenly there is this massive event that they are going to have to look into. So yeah, it's very difficult to gauge how long. I mean, if you look at the referendum after the murder of Joe Cox, there was about 3 or 4 days, and it was disruptive to the campaign, and no doubt this will be, and rightly so, because there are huge events to consider here. There's obviously the pain and suffering of the families, but also the job to be done with the Home Secretary, dealing with the police, trying to work out what exactly is going on, whether there is an ongoing security threat, which, of course, if this is a terrorist attack and someone has committed this offence, then no doubt there is.
A few more lines from this statement that has been issued by Downing Street this evening. The Prime Minister says they are working to establish the full details of the Manchester blast, and says police are treating the incident, as I said earlier, as an appalling terrorist attack. She's taken some time, certainly, to issue a statement. We heard earlier from Jeremy Corbyn, who you say you are following, also condemning this terrorist attack, and Tim Farron as well. A little bit more from Theresa May. She says her thoughts are with the victims and the families of those affected. And certainly at this stage, Jason, we know that some 19 people are confirmed dead and around 50 are injured, some of whom, of course, will be being treated where you are.
Yeah, that's right. So we got that confirmation through about, what it was, about an hour ago now, 19 dead and 50 injured. So, yeah, 3 times as many injured. And there's a few hospitals around here that are treating the injured. There were literally dozens of ambulances down at the scene. They've gone now, but one of the ambulances came in only about 10 minutes ago, and we've seen families around here distraught, looking distressed. There's a family coming towards me now, and maybe I will just see. Do you mind talking to us about what happened? Oh, you weren't involved? Okay. I mean, obviously, there are other things going on here as well. This is a hospital that's working, all sorts of things happening at the time. We've been quite, obviously, we're not approaching people unless they want to talk to us. We're not trying to shove cameras in their faces. But I have spoken to some of the people who have been involved in this, who were inside when the explosion went off. And as I was telling you a short while ago, a couple of teenagers whose grandfather was actually in the room when the explosion happened and got a shrapnel wound to his face and is staying here tonight. I don't know exactly how many of those 50 injured are in this particular hospital tonight, but it does seem that from the eyewitness reports that we've heard that this was a fairly substantial explosion, enough to blow people off their feet and to cause injuries such as shrapnel wounds to people, and no doubt some of those injuries are quite serious.
Indeed so. For the moment, Jason, thank you very much indeed.
That has left 19 people dead. So even the Prime Minister now coming up this evening and saying that this could be a terrorist incident. And if that is the case, it would represent a huge escalation in that type of attack against innocent civilians.
Right, Isa, thank you so much for bringing us the updates. That was Isa Ali, our correspondent in the UK.
Now, we have spoken to some guests, former US diplomat Jim Jatras, who thinks assuming the incident as a terror attack, treating it as a terror incident, is a wise move.
I think treating it as a terrorist attack is a prudent initial assumption, or at least a plausible possibility that should be kept in mind. Obviously, when we think of terrorist attacks in Europe nowadays, we think of some kind of radical Islamic or jihadist-inspired attack, whether connected to a terrorist group or inspired by one. I think we should have some information from the British authorities fairly soon whether this was in fact a bombing or whether it was some kind of a natural occurrence, an accident, an explosion. Let's remember that British cities, ever since the IRA bombings back in the 70s, is one of the most heavily monitored areas of the world with regard to closed caption television monitoring. So I would be very surprised if at some early date we don't have some footage of some people who are suspected of planting the bomb, if in fact that's what it was. We've had nightclub explosions and fires caused by pyrotechnics. So far, this doesn't sound like it. And the explosion in the foyer, for example, might be somebody who was trying to smuggle a device in and exploded it when it didn't pass security. We don't really know. So we can't rule that out. But at this point, that does not sound like the more probable explanation.
Well, the moment of the explosion was accidentally caught on the dash camera of a car parked just a few blocks away. We can show you that footage now. Well, here on that video, you can see a flash and hear a sound of the blast. Just quite how big that blast was. Sounds like an earthquake. The footage was put online by a Twitter user commenting that he was waiting for his girlfriend to come back from that very same concert when it was shaken by that deadly explosion.
And here's a recap of what we know about the incident so far. A statement by the Greater Manchester Police has confirmed that there are 90 dead and around 50 injured. According to reports, police are tracing the incident as a terror attack until they know otherwise.
Police say the suspicious device was found in the area. There was a controlled explosion carried out there in Cathedral Gardens. We do since know that was abandoned clothing and not an explosive device. We have statements coming in as well from various politicians, notably Theresa May, UK Prime Minister. She said her thoughts are with the victims and families of those affected in what is being treated by the police as an appalling terrorist expert as well. Get some reaction from him as well. Max, hi, thanks for joining us such short notice. I hope you can hear me. What are your initial thoughts and reaction to this incident? Obviously very early days yet as to what exactly happened. Very sketchy details, just really what we know. There was one explosion outside of the incident, a second controlled explosion, and other reports of gunmen which have since turned out not to be confirmed. At the moment it is looking like just that one explosion taking place outside of the venue. Who do you think could be behind this attack? And it has been confirmed as an attack now by Greater Manchester Police.
Yeah, this does look like a terrorist attack, a mass casualty attack. Most likely, if we are going with the assumption that this is terrorism, we would suspect that there's a good chance that it's an Islamist attacker. This is actually the 4-year anniversary to this day of the Lee Rigby attack, which was also in Britain, and that was claimed by Islamist attackers. The reality is that there aren't that many different kinds.
Huge difference to our evening tonight.
So tell me what the difference would have been then if they hadn't been there blocking your way.
I think, thank God and thank them, because we were heading exactly to where I think it was.
Right, so they just held you up enough that you just missed it?
Oh yeah, it was a line, you couldn't reach it. They simply said, no, this isn't the right way for you now, girls. They were directing us out to it, and they definitely saved our lives tonight.
And how do you feel, having taken your daughter to her first concert, that something like this happened there?
It's just so sad, so sad, so sad.
Were there many children there?
Those poor people. It was full of beautiful young girls and boys and families, and it's just tragic to think that such a great family evening has now ended in such horror.
We obviously don't know what caused this single loud bang that you talked about, but is it your sense that it was an explosion, given that you could smell the burning?
When I first heard it, because it sounded like it was behind closed doors, it was quite muffled, but very loud, but we knew it wasn't in our bit. So we just kind of walked away and looked at each other as if to think, that was strange. Then when the man shouted, "Run," with real panic, we did. We came out, smelt it, and then then it sunk into me what this was.
So a concert full of lovely young girls and boys who were there to see their idol, a massive US pop star, Ariana Grande, and it turns to this: 19 dead, 50 injured. The Prime Minister, the full statement now: "We are working to establish the full details of what is being treated by the police as an appalling terrorist attack. All our thoughts are with the victims and the families of those who have been affected." And a Tory source then confirming that the Prime Minister's general election campaign is being suspended. Back with more news in just a moment. We will be hearing soon from the Chief Constable of Greater Manchester Police.
Accompanied children are waiting to be found by their parents and loved ones.
That's right. We understand that about 50 children were in the Holiday Inn nearby, and the hotel was looking after them, waiting for them to be reunited with their parents. And we understand that some people have opened up their homes in Manchester to look after those children. I mean, the people who would have been going to this concert, a lot of them would have been very young. We heard some of them were 12 or 13. For some, it would have been their first concert. And now parents are trying to reunite them, parents trying to reunite themselves with their children. In addition to this, the railway station has been closed down. A lot of people would have come to and from the venue by train. That has been closed down, so that just adds to the picture of confusion.
Andy, thanks very much for joining us for now. We'll certainly come back to you when the details emerge of what exactly happened there at the Manchester Arena. Of course, as Theresa May mentioned, this is now being treated as a terror attack, as the security forces and terror units there in Manchester and the emergency services in London try to piece together what exactly happened. As Andy mentioned, a lot of teenagers, a lot of 20-somethings at this concert, a lot of confusion there, a lot of panic, but their testimony, as shaken as they might be, will be crucial to this investigation and piecing together the series of events leading up to what we think and what we know was a huge explosion there in Manchester at the Manchester Arena as people were leaving in the foyer area.
So what we know at this stage from police is that 19 people have been killed in that attack, around 50 people injured in what Theresa May, the British Prime Minister, is calling an appalling terrorist attack. It happened at just after 10:30 local time on Monday evening in Manchester, and it came at the end of a pop concert by the American singer Ariana Grande. Now, as Tom was saying, the cause is unknown, focuses on very much an explosion in the foyer as people were leaving the venue. But Theresa May going on to say her thoughts were with those affected by what is being treated by the police as an appalling terrorist attack. They say the explosion was in the arena's foyer, so people would have been going out just after the end of that concert. Ariana Grande sang an encore and then people started leaving the main exit there in the foyer. And we were hearing from eyewitnesses or people who were inside that as that evacuation happened, they opened up the side doors, they opened up the fire doors. People also were able to leave via the side in a scene of absolute panic inside Manchester Arena. A fantastic night of enjoyment turned into the most appalling event in a split second.
On the line now is Mickey Betteridge, who was at the concert with his girlfriend. Mickey, obviously you must be very shaken as to what has happened tonight, what you saw. Just help us piece together what happened and let us know what you saw.
Yeah, I was there with my girlfriend and my daughter. It was actually a Christmas present for my daughter. And just as Ariana Grande left the stage, we were just all we were in block 113 on Row, so we were quite close to the front. So we were walking up the stairs where everyone was just leaving, and then just as we got out into the area where like the toilets are and all the shops where they sell all the t-shirts and caps and everything, we were just walking across there, and we heard this, this big bang. We didn't obviously know what it was. I did think, I did wonder whether it were, a terror attack or I didn't know whether they were dismantling the stage and that they'd maybe dropped something, and which caused a big bang. And then all of a sudden, there was the screaming, and people started running from behind us. To sort of like there were hundreds of people on.
And Mickey, just give us a sense. Are you safe now? Are you safe with your girlfriend and daughter? I hope and assume that you're out of the area.
Yeah, we're back in Leeds now. We drove to the event, so we got out. When we got out, I actually grabbed hold of my daughter and said run, and we were running. Like, there were obviously hundreds of people screaming and running. It was just mayhem. We were running down all the stairs, trying to get out. And then I looked behind me and I couldn't see my girlfriend because there were that many people just running. And we got outside and I crossed straight over the road, and I was looking back and I couldn't see her, so I got my phone out to ring her. And then luckily, she was ringing me as I pulled my phone out, so she came across, and we walked back up to where we parked the car.
And your daughter, I'm not sure how old she is, but she must be a huge fan of Ariana Grande, but she must now be very shaken to what's happened. How do you even come to terms or explain what did happen?
Yeah, I mean, she's a massive fan. She's loved her for years. She was really excited. She's got all her albums and everything. So it was, like I say, I got her for Christmas. She's been looking forward to it since December. She came out, from school today. We drove over, and yeah, obviously she was shaken up. She didn't know what we're going to. She's 9 years old, so quite scary for her. She was saying, "What's happening? What's happening?" When I was running, I just said, "Just keep running." And when we got outside, obviously she saw loads of other parents and kids crying and shouting. So, she was in tears when we got outside.
And I understand at one point you lost your girlfriend, so you must have been at a state of confusion for most of it. How much information were you getting in the aftermath of the explosion?
There were nothing. I don't think really anybody knew what had happened. I didn't know whether, when everybody started running, I thought maybe it was a gunshot, and people had seen it and were just running for their lives. But nobody knew exactly, because where we were, I don't know where it actually happened, but we heard it, but we didn't see anything. Or I've heard people saying that they felt things. We just literally heard a huge bang, so we didn't know where it had come from, what it was. So it was just everybody else running that made me run, and I thought maybe it was a gunshot. But obviously, still, until we got in the car and put the radio on, we didn't know what had happened.
Yeah, it's a common story tonight, unknowing what happened exactly, just hearing that explosion. Mickey, we're grateful and thankful that you, your girlfriend and your daughter are all safe, and thanks for joining us here.
Well, let's recap what has...
Police tape and... excuse me, would I be able to have a quick chat about... Were you at the concert? Were you at the... Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Would I be able to talk to you just a second?
I'm not going on the news or something, am I?
Okay.
Right, thank you.
So a lot of people have been coming through the cordon and making their way back to hotels, to taxis. They didn't want to talk. It's entirely understandable. Now, as people were leaving, we had several reports that it could have been an electrical fault, it could have been a gas main, and then an hour later we had confirmation of the sheer scale of this incident. 19 fatalities, around 50 injured, and it began to take on something far more sinister. And we will be hearing from the Greater Manchester Chief Constable, who is going to be giving a statement on the steps of GMP headquarters soon. He will be across everything, of course, and he'll be giving us an update. But all of the streets around here are cordoned off. Very quiet now. People have been going back to their hotels or trying to reconnect with loved ones. This concert was attended by around 20,000 people. The capacity of the arena is 21,000. It's the biggest arena in Europe. This was a sellout concert. Young, old, families, everybody was in there. And many people were trying to reconnect with relatives, parents who were picking some of the younger ones, the teenagers, up. And earlier on, it was people just trying to get beyond the cordon to their hotels, to their taxis, to see their relatives. And now things have started to quieten down. Beyond this police tape, there will now be a huge operation to try and pick through the chronology of what happened from the moment that that concert started, who was allowed in, the level of security checks. We heard that the explosion actually occurred in one of the public areas of the arena. And if anyone knows the arena, there's the inside where the seating is, and then you leave, rather like a football stadium, into a series of networks of tunnels which go up and down steps and then out into the fresh air. Now, something happened within that middle ring, which is actually public land, and that is where we're told the explosions happened, or explosion, we're not quite sure yet. And so there's still some information to pick through about exactly the chronology of how many people were out at the time where the explosion happened. Now, around an hour ago, there was a controlled explosion not far from here, just around the corner at Manchester Cathedral. Very loud bang. We were warned about it. That turned out to be some abandoned clothing in a bag. Of course, heightened state of anxiety, heightened state of security. The bomb squad were called in, sniffer dogs were called in, and that package was dealt with, and it was deemed to be nothing. The fear, of course, that it was some kind of secondary device. It wasn't. When I was driving into Manchester, there was an abandoned car on the crosshatches. We've got some pictures, perhaps, that we can show you. A car that had been abandoned on the crosshatches of a crossroads. Again, it looked very suspicious. They called the police dogs in. They went inside. There was a huge amount of security around the car. Everyone was being moved back. That car was cleared. So there have been some incidents connected to this which could have been much more serious than they turned out to be. I'm just going to step out again and just try and get Andy just to go in as tight as he can, just to show you the police van. The ambulances have moved now. What we've seen in the last hour or two is lots of ambulances, sometimes 5 or 6 at a time, going into the cordoned area and then leaving again to one of the many hospitals around the city of Manchester.
Nick Martin, for the moment, thanks very much indeed. And just to reiterate what Nick was saying there, the Chief Constable of Greater Manchester Police, Ian Hopkins, expected to give a statement on the steps of the police headquarters now. So he's clearly late. We will take you there, of course, as soon as it happened. But just to reiterate that Ariana Grande was and is a massive star in America, and not surprisingly, therefore, performers from across the globe have been paying tribute to those who died in this suspected terror attack at the Ariana Grande concert. Harry Styles, One Direction, of course, said, "I'm heartbroken over what happened in Manchester tonight, sending love to everyone involved." Katy Perry tweeted, "Praying for everyone at the Ariana Grande show." And comedians as well, Matt Lucas, for example, saying his thoughts are with everyone affected by the terrible attack. Cher has written, "My prayers go out to the people of Manchester." Had special times there from youth and beyond. And Katie Stunsell said she'd just finished performing in London when she heard the gut-wrenching news, as she put it, and adding, "So very sorry for the families who have lost loved ones." But certainly it has dominated film premieres, the Baywatch film, for example, because of the pull of Ariana Grande as a star in the States, and finally the band Nickelback as well. Manchester, you are in our hearts, thoughts and prayers, sending all love and light to those affected. Stay strong. And on the steps there, on the incident at Manchester Arena earlier this evening. We will take you there live as soon as we can. In the meantime, the newspapers for Tuesday reacting to this, as you can see. Just before I come to that, actually, Home Secretary Amber Rudd has said her thoughts are with all those affected by this barbaric act in Manchester. So that picture, as you can see, which has been on social media, Manchester Evening News going for the terror at the arena, at least 19 killed in blast horror. Teenagers flee in panic from the gig, and police treat the explosion as terrorism. To the Daily Mirror then, also leading on this story, 19 dead in pop concert suicide bomb. So they are taking the word of US officials speaking to Reuters and others news agencies in the belief that this looks like a suicide bomb attack. And then the Times as well. explosion at Manchester concert leaves 19 dead. So a number of those are second editions, not surprisingly. They've been sitting and watching the news as it comes through. So the Home Secretary, Amber Rudd, saying that her thoughts are with all those affected by this barbaric act in Manchester. A Tory source quoted by the Press Association, unnamed of course, suggesting Theresa May will suspend her campaigning. One presumes at the moment it may just be for tomorrow. There may well also be an emergency meeting of the Cobra Committee, and one would assume that would drag some cabinet ministers to London from their campaigning. Let's just show you the shot, shall we, of the headquarters once again. The Chief Constable of Greater Manchester Police, Ian Hopkins, due to give a statement on the steps of the headquarters. It was due at 2:40. We will take you there as soon as we can. In the meantime, let's hear from an Emmerdale actress, Isabel Hodkins, who told me earlier that she was inside the venue at the time of the explosion.
Well, the concert had finished and we were all leaving, and then there was a big bang to our left, and then everybody just ran away from that immediate area. So we didn't know what had happened, but then nobody was like really, people were screaming and running, but then it kind of died down. So we didn't know if a balloon had gone off, because balloons had been released in the concert, so we didn't know if it was that. And then everybody was panicking, they was pushing up the stairs, people were obviously running, like climbing down and over the chairs. And then as we got out, just everybody was screaming and crying, and then the corridor was full, like it smelled of burning, and there was quite a lot of smoke as we were leaving in the corridor, and an area had been blocked off so you couldn't go any further, but we managed to get out quite quickly, and then there was just lots of police and ambulances arriving as we were leaving.
So what part, you're the first person we've actually heard from who said that there was a smell of burning and smoke. Can you pin down where that was coming from? What part of the arena complex that might have been in?
We left on the side road, so it wasn't the main entrance. It was as you'd go out, and then there was like the kind of the bridge underneath where you'd go in towards the ticket office. So we came out the steps that way on a side road. So to the right of like the steps that come out near Victoria Station, it was around the corner from there.
And how do you feel now, hearing from the police that there are a number of confirmed fatalities and others injured? How do you feel about being there and witnessing this?
Yeah, it's just terrifying, and it's really shocking, and my heart goes out to anybody, you know, with anybody that's been hurt or anything like that. Obviously, it's just terrifying. We just needed to, we didn't know what was happening, so we just wanted to get out of Manchester and be safe. And then obviously as it's progressed and the story's developed, it's just shocking, and we just feel very shaken up, but lucky to have got away safely.
And many will feel like that, certainly, but pictures are being posted on social media of those who are missing as people try to track down, no doubt some of them going from hospital to hospital to track down those who have died or been injured in what does appear to be a devastating terrorist attack. Reports emanating from America via unnamed security officials speaking to Reuters news agencies and others, suggesting it appears to be the work of a suicide bomber. That is unconfirmed by the UK authorities, but we are anticipating a statement from the Chief Constable of Greater Manchester Police imminently. So Ian Hopkins expected to give a statement in the next couple of minutes. Ashish Joshi is here, and possibly we'll get confirmation, Ashish, of the type of device, but certainly this has come from the States rather than UK authorities.
Yeah, American journalists have seemed to have the jump on the British media this evening. We are obviously
They're so interested in this because of the scale of Ariana Grande as a youngster.
Yes, because she is a superstar. She's a television star through her childhood. She is now one of the most successful pop stars, and you can see that just by all the tweets tonight from huge celebrities. You know, people like Ellen DeGeneres and Harry Styles and anyone connected with the music industry. So therefore, there is a great deal of interest across the Atlantic in what has happened this evening, that, you know, the fact that an American superstar has been caught up in a terrorist incident here in this country. And certainly the briefings between what seems like British intelligence and American intelligence, they've been right about the numbers involved in, as far as the casualties were concerned, and the speculation that this was a suicide bomber, that has not been corroborated by any independent UK agency, but certainly the American network seem to think that their sources are good enough. They are going with that this evening, and some going even further to speculate that this was a nail bomb. That may or may not be supported by the sort of injuries that our correspondents are reporting seeing at hospitals this evening in Manchester. But certainly we will expect the Chief Constable of Greater Manchester Police to give us a full update. They've been very good all evening, you know, since this incident happened at 10:30, but they have to tread that really fine line between informing the public and not to spread panic even further.
Yes, and give misinformation at the start, which we've certainly experienced in previous terror attacks here in this country. More details from the Home Secretary, Amber Rudd, condemning the barbaric attack which saw a blast rip through a music venue in Manchester. She said the full details of what happened at the Manchester Arena were still emerging, as police confirmed 19 people had died. Ms. Rudd said, "My thoughts are with all those affected by this barbaric act." The full details of what happened are still emerging, but I'm so proud of the police and first responders who reacted to this tragic incident so swiftly.
And Nicola Sturgeon has tweeted just now, "Heartbreaking news from Manchester. My thoughts are with all those who have lost loved ones or been injured in this barbaric attack."
And the Cobra meeting we're just hearing from Downing Street, expected to take place at around 9 a.m. So whether some cabinet members will be travelling overnight, whether they're back in London anyway, who knows? But certainly Downing Street expecting to host a Cobra meeting at around 9 a.m. Press Association reporting that Theresa May will suspend her campaign. One wonders, Ashish, if it is just for tomorrow. She's had a wobble, we know, because of the plans on social care, the manifesto change, and, you know, in some respects, for her to focus on this will not be a bad moment in her campaign.
I think the Tory source who spoke on the condition of anonymity a little while ago seems to suggest that campaigning will be suspended. And I imagine with an attack of this severity, it won't be just for a day or two, because this is, you know, the second most serious terrorist attack in Britain, you know, after 7/7. We're talking about 19 people who've been killed, 50 injured. One imagines that some of those injuries are quite horrific. We will be given a full update by the Greater Manchester Police, but certainly the indications from the other emergency services in Manchester, they were stretched tonight, and they had to divert all the resources they had towards this emergency at the arena. 21,000, mostly teenagers and young children, trapped inside the stadium when this explosion took place. We heard reports it was inside, then we heard reports from the arena itself that it was just outside, but certainly targeting very many young people who were there without guardians or parents or family members.
Venue, the police is now saying that so there are still a lot of people in the area. That's why there are reports that buses have been pressed into service to ferry people out of the area, which is right now sealed by police and emergency crews. And some local taxi companies are also offering free rides for those affected. But rail services have been cancelled. Now, we're right now showing you, I believe, what happened quite recently at the Victoria station, which is closed at the moment and will be closed throughout the day on Tuesday. We also received reports that parents are still coming in to try and fetch their children. We know that some teenagers who came together to this concert were separated in the chaos that proceeded right after the performance was over. You can see there on the screens the photos photos that were posted by, I believe, family members or friends, photos of those people, those teenagers, and some of them are children really, that happened to be at the Manchester Arena there, happened to attend the concert, and their location is at the moment unknown. You can see there, if you're looking for your children, try Holiday Inn that has 50 children there. You've got the phone number of the Holiday Inn in Manchester and the UK there on your screen. If you're looking for your loved one, do not hesitate and please contact this number. This is the number of the Holiday Inn Hotel, which is at the moment giving shelter to 50 children that are lost from this concert at the Manchester Arena.
We are now, as we mentioned earlier, waiting for two key events, really, which will give us more information. Of course, very sketchy right now what we can and can't confirm in live reports, but waiting for two key events. The Greater Manchester Police press conference, which should take place before daybreak. It's now nearly 3 a.m. obviously in the United Kingdom. We are waiting for that press conference, which will give us more details, and the British Prime Minister Theresa May also holding a meeting of the UK Emergency Response Committee known as COBRA, standard procedure after any terror incident of any scale. Of course, this would be one of the worst terror attacks in the UK from the casualty figures we have so far. That will happen in the morning, and we'll be expecting a press briefing, of course, a statement to be made after that meeting as well.
Now, Theresa May has also issued condolences to the victims and their families.
We spoke to...
We are working to establish the full details of what is being treated by the police as an appalling terrorist attack. All our thoughts are with the victims and the families of those who have been affected.
International security expert Max Abrams gave us his view of what's happened in Manchester yesterday evening.
The reality is that there aren't that many different kinds of suspects who would commit this sort of an attack, because what looks like has happened here is that not only was a soft target attacked, but a soft target that disproportionately had children there. And so this was a children's concert. And most terrorist groups do not go out of their way to commit mass casualty attacks against children. Islamic State related terrorism tends to be the most extreme possible. And so if I were to guess at this point, assuming this is terrorism, I would guess that this is an Islamic State related martyrdom operation.
Well, here's a recap of what we know about this incident so far. A statement by the Greater Manchester Police has confirmed that there are 19 dead and around 50 injured. According to reports, police are treating this incident as a terror attack.
Appalling terrorist attack.
The explosion was behind us, forced us forward, but everyone who was 7 foot, 15 foot behind us, every one of them got injured. And as I've said before, there was about 20 to 30 people fatally injured.
This is the scene a little earlier where ambulances were flooding to the venue to help those many who were injured.
Hello, welcome to BBC News with Tom Donkin and me, Karen Giannoni. We start with our breaking news from the northwest of England, because police say at least 19 people have been killed and more than 50 others injured in an explosion at Manchester Arena. They're treating it as a terrorist incident.
Witnesses reported hearing a loud bang at the venue at the end of the concert by the pop singer Ariana Grande. Eyewitnesses reported nuts and bolts strewn across the floor and the smell of explosives. Britain's Prime Minister Theresa May has said her thoughts are with the victims and their families, describing it as an appalling terrorist attack. Downing Street says an emergency COBRA meeting is expected to take place in the morning around 9 a.m. local time.
Well, let's bring you what we know has happened in the last few hours. Our correspondent Sarah Corker is with me. Sarah, what do we know that is confirmed about what happened inside Manchester Arena?
Well, we do know, of course, this is a really fast-moving situation. We've been told that emergency services are still at the scene there at Manchester Arena, treating casualties, and also police officers trying to piece together really what did happen. We can talk you through the sequence of events then. We know that there was a huge bang described as an explosion inside the venue at about 10:40 p.m. last night. That was just as the concert by Ariana Grande was finishing. Thousands of people were inside at the time, and it just was at the end of that gig, so people were filing out when that explosion.
We do have a live guest now as well joining us, Karen Kwiatkowski, retired US Air Force Lieutenant Colonel. Thanks so much for joining us all the way from the United States, such short notice. Mum, very good to have you with us. The police, of course, confirming this is a terror incident that's been evident for some time now, and judging by the casualty figures, one of the worst indeed in recent times in the UK. 19 people have been confirmed dead, 50 injured. The figures could, of course, go up or down throughout the night as well. Very early to speculate. I appreciate that, with details still coming in on exactly what happened there, but judging from the hallmarks of this, from the shrapnel wounds, from the confirmed that it has been an explosion. What do you think the motives behind this attack could be, and indeed who could be behind this incident?
It's a good question. Certainly the thinking with IED, perhaps a suicide bomber of some sort. I mean, we've seen this as an ISIS tactic, other terrorists around the world, and people just resisting. I mean, suicides to make a statement, to produce great amounts of fear, targeting innocent people. I mean, you know, why do they do it? Well, they're murderers, first off. Is there some reason in particular now that, you know, English foreign policy, British foreign policy is at issue? Well, I mean, anytime in the last 20 years or so, maybe the past 40 years. So there's always something that people are upset about. I think we need more information, and I haven't heard that anyone has taken responsibility for this particular act yet.
We understand that this attack took place on the anniversary of the murder of Lee Rigby, the soldier that was attacked and killed in London in 2013. That also took place on the 22nd of May. That may well be, of course, a coincidence, but nevertheless, that is a fact that this has taken place on the anniversary of that horrific incident on the streets of London. Could there perhaps be some sort of link here as well, or do you think this is just a coincidence? The timing of this attack, also, of course, with the UK general election coming up on the 8th of June. What do you make of the timing of this incident?
Well, certainly it could be connected to the anniversary of that event. You know, we've seen that many times before. Also, the elections are important. You know, the targeting, the soft target of a concert, you know, families, children, clearly designed to the extent that a suicide bomb is designed. I mean, it's clearly designed to produce a great amount of fear and anxiety. And this is something that impacts elections. It impacts some of the major questions that are going on in Great Britain now. Yeah, I mean, this is, I'm shaking my head. I mean, this is really, it's really tragic, and we feel for the people there that have, that are suffering and that are in fear. I don't know, I really don't know what to say.
So, Karen, of course, it's certainly made even more tragic by the fact so many children, young people, teenagers were there at the Ariana Grande concert. We've seen numerous video clips of eyewitnesses there showing the scenes of horror inside the stadium. The explosion took place, though, in a public area, as far as we understand. We've got the statement there from Manchester Arena stating it wasn't in the stadium, in the foyer. It took place outside. As somebody with a military background, in terms of the security measures, we understand they must have been heightened at such an event. Do you think, though, one can ever make any public event of this size entirely safe? I mean, the hallmarks really that the attacker or attackers couldn't maybe get inside the venue. That's why the explosion took place outside. Do you think security measures can ever be 100% adequate?
I'm sure that they cannot be 100% adequate. I mean, if people are going to get together and move and participate and associate, there's going to be vulnerabilities there. It does seem, though, that given they did detonate this thing outside, they did it at the time when people were exiting. So it seems to me that there was some thinking, either on the part of the person or the group that was behind this, to really cause maximum damage, because this thing went off just as the concert, or just after the concert had ended, and you had large numbers of people exiting in that same area. So clearly an evil act designed to harm and to strike fear in average people. I can't imagine that in this day and age that kind of thing is going to succeed in either changing policy or causing people to give up. This actually makes citizens and people and family members very angry, and I don't think that's the result that they want. They want them to be fearful, but I suspect that they're going to be more angry than they are scared.
A sense, as you say, of not people of giving up, but of unity coming across, certainly on social media, that we've seen people coming together, volunteers, many putting their lives at risk to help those injured or stranded, of course, in or around that area. Karen Kwiatkowski, former retired US Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, thanks for giving us your insight today all the way from the United States on what's a very dark and tragic night for the city of Manchester in the UK.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
And now we can talk to Abby Smitten, a local journalist who is outside a hospital in Manchester. Abby, what's going on around you?
Okay, so I'm outside Manchester Royal Infirmary, which is the hospital that's closest to Manchester Arena. And even 4 hours after this explosion happened, there are still ambulances coming and going from the centre of Manchester, which sort of tells you the scale of what actually happened, that even 4 hours later we're still seeing injured people being brought to the hospital. I mean, it's actually quite quiet given the fact that this was such a huge incident. There isn't that much activity behind us in the hospital, which is probably credit to the emergency services and their ability to do their job so well and so quickly and respond so rapidly to this sort of incident.
Well, we just heard from the recent police statement that overall 6 hospitals across Manchester are helping people who were injured at the Manchester Arena. Now, have you seen parents coming in? Have you seen witnesses, actual people from the concert, or just ambulances?
Yes, so I have spoken to one man who didn't want to appear on camera, but his daughter was actually at the concert. And so he sort of said that his daughter, this was her Christmas present, and she was going to the Ariana Grande concert, and she'd been looking forward to it since last year, since Christmas Day last year when she got the tickets. And so he first was waiting outside the actual arena for her to come out with her friend at the end of the concert, and just to see the terror in her eyes, he said that it was heartbreaking because this was something she'd looked forward to for days, and that she's basically he said, and I quote, that she was in bits, that she was just heartbroken and terrified by what had happened and what she'd seen inside the arena.
Well, I understand that a lot of teenagers, a lot of children after tonight will need some psychological assistance, some psychological help, of course, after this experience. But have you heard anything about the type of the wounds that are most common? Now, we've received reports that there were some even shrapnel wounds on some people. Do you know any information on that?
I've heard reports that people have seen on the ground things like nuts and bolts and things on the ground that could have caused injury to quite a lot of people if this was a sort of bomb explosion, although we are speculating. We don't know if it is a terrorist attack. But if it was this sort of explosion, these bits of nuts and bolts and shrapnel could have travelled a very long way and injured a lot of people. So it stands to reason that shrapnel injuries would be quite common, but I can't say for certain what the most common injury has been.
If I could just get a quick final question in, Abby. We understand there's a huge number of emergency services still on scene, the operation obviously ongoing. You mentioned the hospital's quite quiet. What did you see on your way from the arena to the hospital, just in terms of the atmosphere there, in terms of walking wounded, taxis ferrying people? We understand people are being given free rides because public transport obviously understandably paralysed in the city. What was the atmosphere on your way there? Did you see a lot of people from the crowd still trying to leave the area, or has it really been a bit of an eerie silence there in the city centre?
I think you've sort of hit it on the head there about it being an eerie silence. It is 3 o'clock in the morning in Manchester, so you'd expect it to be quiet. But after an event like this, it is eerily quiet. There are a lot of emergency services still going, a lot of blue lights still flashing, just driving the short distance from the arena to this hospital. It's about a 10-15 minute drive, and there were, I think I saw at least 10, maybe 12 ambulances and police cars, and there's a blood donation van that just whizzed past me on the way to the hospital as well.
Now, speaking about the blood donation, we've seen online several posts on Twitter that tomorrow there's going to be a number of points opened where people can volunteer and donate blood for those injured in this incident at the Manchester Arena. We also know that a lot of people have volunteered to come and help at the hospital, to provide free rides to the hospital. Now, we have received those reports. Abby, thank you so much for sharing what you see there, for just giving up an updates of what's happening there in Manchester. That was Abby Smitten, a local journalist who's outside a hospital in Manchester.
We have got an update just over the last 3 or 4 minutes from the North West Ambulance Service as well. They say they've taken in 59 casualties from Manchester Arena to hospitals across the city. Also saying they've treated a number of walking wounded on the scene. In addition to that, meaning that the casualty figures have risen since a couple of hours ago. 59 casualties from the North West Ambulance Service, plus a number of walking wounded on the scene, of those whose injuries are not so severe. That gives you an indication of just how serious this incident was, of the scale of this incident to cause that amount of casualties at the scene. We're getting more and more videos in from eyewitnesses on social media from the scene as well. We've seen this one in particular. I believe this is the area backing onto the arena in terms of Manchester Victoria Station. This is more footage from eyewitness account. You can see a lot of people are using their phones to record what's going on, of people heading for the exits from the arena as well. People posting about what happened on the arena at Twitter. This is one of the posts. You can hear the announcements for people to stay calm and exit the building without panic. You can see that video just now.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your time. There's no need to bunch up. There's no problems here. Just take your time and keep exiting the building. There's no need to bunch up and run. Take your time. There's no problems here. Thank you for coming and having a good time tonight. Everything is fine. Just take your time exiting the building. Thank you very much. Walk slowly. There's no need to run.
Well, Manchester Arena is an indoor arena in the city. It's got a capacity of 21,000 people. It's located right in the city centre in the heart of Manchester. It's also the second largest indoor arena in the EU. It's one of the busiest arenas actually in the world, hosting a large number of concerts, sporting events as well. The arena hosted the Olympic Games back in 1996 and again in 2000.
And this is what one witness to the incident said after he fled the concert along with others.
As soon as Ariana left the stage, there was these massive explosions. And everyone started to run. No, everyone was pushing and shoving. I got pushed over. There was just loads of chaos and everyone was scared and screaming. But we got took out of like an exit. And now apparently I've heard people saying it's a bomb.
We spoke with former U.S. diplomat Jim Jatras, who thinks assuming the incident is terror-related is a wise move.
I think treating it as a terrorist attack is a prudent initial assumption, or at least a plausible.
Ariana Grande, the American pop star, well, she had just finished a concert in the arena, and witnesses say they heard an explosion, one explosion, after the lights in the arena had gone up, and as people were filing out of the venue, you can see that in the left of your screen. That's footage from social media, so everyone filing out of that arena, and that is when witnesses say that explosion happened. According to the police, they were responding to reports of an explosion within the foyer area of that stadium. Well, Ashish Joshi, our correspondent, is here with me now. And Ashish, perhaps one of the most horrific aspects of this attack is the demographic of the crowd. Ariana Grande, a huge international pop star. She's 23. Just to give you a sense of just how popular she is, on Instagram she's got 105 million followers. Twitter, about 46 million followers. So perhaps that's the most horrific aspect of what is an overall horrific night.
Yeah, it's when you look at all the footage that's coming out of Manchester this evening, even the ones that are on our screen right now, the people who would have gone to see Ariana Grande would have been young girls, teenagers, young children. We've heard lots of witness accounts speaking to us on Sky News throughout the night. Mothers with their children who were caught up in what happened today. The appeal that went out from the Greater Manchester Police, setting up a hotline because they know that very many young people have been separated from their parents, their families, their guardians. And that, I think, has really, for most of people following what has happened this evening or last night, that's the most shocking part of this. That the people, the 21,000 people who have been packed inside this arena were children and teenagers who had gone there to listen to a concert. And certainly looking at all the pictures, you can see just how terrified they were when they heard that explosion, running for their lives and streaming out into that chaos that's been described by so many witnesses on Sky this evening.
Okay, Ashish, we've got some new footage at the moment, so let's have a look at that. And this is of the explosion, so let's have a listen.
Oh my God. What's going on? What just happened? What's going on? Oh my God! What's going on?
So that is very disturbing footage there, Ashish, and it gives you a real sense of just how terrifying it must have been in that arena at the time. Let's just give people an idea of what Manchester Arena is. It's got a capacity of 21,000 people.
21,000, yes.
I believe 20,000 people were in the arena at the time.
It was sold out.
And as we were saying, this is part of Ariana Grande's a world tour, right?
World tour. What struck me about that footage is how quickly people reacted to the explosion. The reports when they came out at 10:30, it could have been an electrical failure, it could have been something that happened inside the concert hall to do with a speaker, but immediately there were people who were there, they heard the explosion, you heard and saw their panic and terror. You heard a young girl crying out, "Oh my God," within seconds of hearing that explosion. They are clearly inside the auditorium, there are very many empty seats, they're getting ready to leave, so it was timed as people were filing out. We've heard from the arena itself this evening, and they said that the explosion happened just outside, all right? So, I mean, this is the callous nature of this explosion, timed when people were leaving, outside, and we can if we listen to it again, we'll hear just how loud this explosion is. And it was reported. That explosion was reported by witnesses who weren't even near the arena. They're, you know, half a mile across the city. And we saw the dashboard camera footage earlier on. So they knew, the people inside the arena knew immediately what had happened.
Now, Ashish, here in Britain, we're on the second highest alert level of severe. So that means an attack by militants is considered highly likely. Do you think it speaks to the security of that arena that the attack was in the foyer and not actually inside the arena?
Look, I've been following this all night. There are people who are talking about the security aspect. We don't know, we weren't there. The arena would have known about the threat level posed against it, and I'm sure security would have been in place. But certainly there are people who were there tonight saying they went in without being checked. Is that because there were women, young girls, family members? We don't know, but certainly we do know that the Greater Manchester Police were ready and primed to act on something like this. They've been practicing a long time.
OK, and I just want to bring you a number that the Greater Manchester Police have given out. And it is, if you're trying to find your loved ones, the number to call is 01618 856 9400. We'll have all the latest from Manchester. So the latest pictures out of Manchester, where police are treating an incident as a terrorist incident. There was an explosion on Monday night at about 10:35 at the Manchester Arena. Greater Manchester Police say about 50 people were injured in that incident and at least 19 people lost their lives. Well, earlier we heard from the Chief Constable of the Greater Manchester Police, Ian Hopkins.
I can confirm the details of last night's incident as we currently know them. At around 10:33 p.m, we received reports of an explosion at Manchester Arena in the city centre. This was at the conclusion of the Ariana Grande concert. Currently, we have 19 people confirmed to have lost their lives in the explosion and around 50 casualties that are being treated at 6 hospitals across Greater Manchester. My thoughts are very much with those that have been injured and lost their lives and their loved ones at this terrible time. We are doing all that we can to support them. Officers from Greater Manchester Police and emergency services are working at the scene and are supporting those affected. We are coordinating the operation here at Greater Manchester Police headquarters. An emergency number is available for all those concerned about their loved ones or anyone who may have been in the area. The number is 0161 856 9400. We are currently treating this as a terrorist incident until we have further information. We are working closely with National Counter-Terrorism Policing Network and UK intelligence partners. This is clearly a very concerning time for everyone. We're doing all that we can, working with local and national agencies to support those affected as we gather information about what happened last night. As you will understand, we are still receiving information and updates, so we'll provide further detail when we have a clearer picture. I want to thank people for their support and would ask them to remain vigilant, and if they have any concerns at all, to report them to the National Anti-Terrorist Hotline. The number is 0800 789 321. It is important also that people here in Manchester avoid the area around Manchester Arena so that emergency services can continue to effectively deal with the incident at that location. Thank you very much.
So that was the Chief Constable of the Greater Manchester Police updating us from the HQ there. And he was reiterating facts that we know: 19 people dead, 50 injured, and they're being treated at 6 hospitals around Greater Manchester. The policeman there saying that officers and emergency services are still working at that scene, asking people to avoid the area completely, saying that they're still receiving updates and that as soon as they have more detail, greater detail, they will pass that on to us. Also thanking people for their support and asking them to remain vigilant and to report anything suspicious to the National Anti-Terrorism Hotline. Well, let's listen now to an interview that Jenny Brewster gave to my colleague Anna Botting, and she was at the concert with her daughter Evie.
I took my daughter of 11, this was her first concert. We had a great night, and as Ariana Grande was singing her last song, which was Dangerous Woman, my daughter was tired and she needed the bathroom, and she said, "Can we just go outside now?" And so we did. We went to the bathroom, and then we said, "Let's go now before the rush." So we walked towards where the MEN car park is, where we were parked. And there was a row of stewards stood in a line, stopping us getting through, but they were very friendly, and they said, "This isn't your best way, girls. You're best turning round, and you can get to your car park that way." As I turned round, boom, one loud noise.